During the third probation, the Lord gave me to understand that I should offer myself to Him, so that He could do with me as He pleased. I was to remain standing before Him as a victim offering. At first I was quite frightened, as I felt myself to be so utterly miserable, and knew very well that this was the case. I answered the Lord once again, I am misery itself, how can it be a hostage for others? You do not understand this today. Tomorrow, during your adoration, I will make it known for you. My heart trembled, as did my soul, so deeply did these words sink into my soul. The word of God is living. When I came to the adoration, I felt within my soul that I had entered the temple of the living God, whose majesty is great and incomprehensible, and He made known to me what even the purest spirits are in His sight. Although I saw nothing externally, God's presence pervaded me. At that very moment, my intellect was strangely illumined. A vision passed before the eyes of my soul. It was like the vision Jesus had in the Garden of Olives. First, the physical sufferings and all the circumstances that would increase them. Then the full scope of the spiritual sufferings and those that no one would know about. Everything entered into the vision: false suspicions, loss of good name. I've summarized it here, but this knowledge was already so clear that what I went through later on was in no way different from what I had known at that moment. My name is to be Sacrifice. When the vision ended, a cold sweat bathed my forehead. Jesus made it known to me that even if I did not give my consent to this, I could still be saved, and He would not lessen His graces, but would still continue to have the same intimate relationship with me, so that even if I did not consent to make this sacrifice, God's generosity would not lessen thereby. And the Lord gave me to know that the whole mystery depended on me, on my free consent to the sacrifice given with full use of my faculties. In this free and conscious act lies the whole power and value before His majesty. Even if none of these things for which I offered myself would ever happen to me, before the Lord everything was as though it had already been consummated. At that moment, I realized I was entering into communion with the incomprehensible majesty. I felt that God was waiting for my word, for my consent. Then my spirit immersed itself in the Lord, and I said, Do with me as you please. I subject myself to your will. As of today, your holy will shall be my nourishment, and I will be faithful to your commands with the help of your grace. Do with me as you please. I beg you, O Lord. Be with me at every moment of my life. Suddenly, when I had consented to the sacrifice with all my heart and all my will, God's presence pervaded me. My soul became immersed in God and was inundated with such happiness that I cannot put in writing even the smallest part of it. I felt that His majesty was enveloping me. I was extraordinarily fused with God. I saw that God was well pleased with me, and reciprocally my spirit drowned itself in Him. Aware of this union with God, I felt I was especially loved, and, in turn, I loved with all my soul. A great mystery took place during that adoration, a mystery between the Lord and myself. It seemed to me that I would die of love, at the sight of His glance. I spoke much with the Lord without uttering a single word, and the Lord said to me, You are the light of my heart. From today on, every one of your acts, even the very smallest, will be a delight to my eyes, whatever you do. At that moment I felt transconsecrated. My earthly body was the same, but my soul was different. God was now living in it with the totality of His delight. This is not a feeling, but a conscious reality that nothing can obscure. A great mystery has been accomplished between God and me. Courage and strength have remained in my soul. When the time of adoration came to an end, I came out and calmly faced everything I had feared so much before. When I came out into the corridor, a great suffering and humiliation at the hands of a certain person was awaiting me. I accepted it with submission to a higher will and snuggled closely to the most sacred heart of Jesus, letting Him know that I was ready for that for which I had offered myself. Suffering seemed to spring out of the ground. Even Mother Margaret herself was surprised. For others, many things passed unnoticed, for indeed it wasn't worth paying any attention to them. But in my case, nothing passed unnoticed. Each word was analyzed, each step watched. One sister said to me, "Get ready, sister, to receive a small cross at the hands of Mother Superior. I feel sorry for you." But as for me, I rejoiced at this in the depths of my soul, and had been ready for it for a long time. When she saw my courage, she was surprised. I see now that a soul cannot do much of itself, but with God it can do all things. Behold what God's grace can do. Few are the souls that are always watchful for divine graces, and even fewer of such souls who follow these inspirations faithfully. Still, a soul which is faithful to God cannot confirm its own inspirations. It must submit them to the control of a very wise and learned priest, and until it is quite certain, it should remain distrustful. It should not, on its own initiative alone, put its trust in these inspirations and all other higher graces, because it can thus expose itself to great losses. Even though a soul may immediately distinguish between false inspirations and those of God, it should nevertheless be careful, because many things are uncertain. God is pleased and rejoices when a soul distrusts him for his own sake. Because it loves him, it is prudent and itself asks and searches for help to make certain that it is really God who is acting within it. And once a well-instructed confessor has confirmed this, the soul should be at peace and give itself up to God, according to his directions, that is, according to the directions of the confessor. Pure love is capable of great deeds, and it is not broken by difficulty or adversity. As it remains strong in the midst of great difficulties, so too it perseveres in the toilsome and drab life of each day. It knows that only one thing is needed to please God, to do even the smallest things out of great love, love and always love. Pure love never errs, its light is strangely plentiful. It will not do anything that might displease God. It is ingenious at doing what is more pleasing to God, and no one will equal it. It is happy when it can empty itself and burn like a pure offering. The more it gives of itself, the happier it is. But also, no one can sense dangers from afar as can love. It knows how to unmask and also knows with whom it has to deal. But my torments are coming to an end. The Lord is giving me the promised help. I can see it in two priests, namely Father Andras and Father Sepoko. During the retreat before my perpetual vows, I was set completely at peace for the first time, and afterwards I was led in the same direction by Father Sepoko. This was the fulfillment of the Lord's promise. When I was set at peace and taught how to follow God's paths, my spirit rejoiced in the Lord, and it seemed to me that I was running, not walking. My wings were spread for flight. I soared into the very heat of the sun, and I will not descend until I rest in him, in whom my soul has lost itself forever. And I subjected myself totally to the action of grace. God stoops very low to my soul. I do not draw back, nor do I resist him, but I lose myself in him as my only treasure. I am one with the Lord. It is as if the gulf between us, creator and creature, disappears. For a few days my soul was in a state of continuous ecstasy. God's presence did not leave me for a single moment, and my soul remained in a continuous loving union with the Lord. But this in no way interfered with the performance of my duties. I felt I was transformed into love. I was all afire, but without being burned up. I lost myself in God unceasingly. God drew me to himself so strongly and powerfully that sometimes I was not aware of being on earth. I had impeded and feared God's grace for so long, and now God himself, through Father Andras, has removed all difficulties. My spirit has been turned towards the sun and has blossomed in his rays for him alone. I understand no more. I have wasted many of God's graces because I was always afraid of being deluded. God drew me to himself so powerfully that often it was not in my power to resist his grace, when I was suddenly immersed in him. At these moments, Jesus filled me with such great peace that, later on, even when I tried to become uneasy, I could not do so. And I heard these words in my soul: "In order that you may be assured that it is I who am demanding all these things of you, I will give you such profound peace that even if you wanted to feel troubled and frightened, it will not be in your power to do so today, but love will flood your soul to the point of self-oblivion." Later, Jesus gave me another priest, before whom he ordered me to reveal my soul. At first I did so with a bit of hesitation, but a severe reprimand from Jesus brought about a deep humility within my soul. Under his direction, my soul made quick progress in the love of God, and many wishes of the Lord were carried out externally. Many a time have I been astounded at his courage and his profound humility. Oh, how wretched my soul is for having wasted so many graces. I was running away from God, and he pursued me with his graces. I most often experienced God's grace when I least expected them. From the moment he gave me a spiritual director, I have been more faithful to grace. Thanks to the director and his watchfulness over my soul, I have learned what guidance means and how Jesus looks at it. Jesus warned me of the least fault and stressed that he himself judges the matter that I present to my confessor. And he told me that any transgressions against the confessor touch me myself. When, under his direction, my soul began to experience deep recollection and peace, I often heard these words in my soul: strengthen yourself for combat, repeated over and over at various times. Jesus often makes known to me what he does not like in my soul, and he has more than once rebuked me for what seemed to be trifles, but which were in fact things of great importance. He has warned me and tried me like a master. For many years he himself educated me, until the moment when he gave me a spiritual director. Previously he himself had made clear to me what I did not understand, but now he tells me to ask my confessor about everything and often says, I will answer you through his mouth, be at peace. It has never happened to me that I have received an answer which was contrary to what the Lord wanted of me. When I presented it to the spiritual director, it sometimes happens that Jesus first asks certain things of me, about which no one knows anything, and then when I kneel at the confessional, my confessor gives me the same order. However, this is infrequent. When, over a long period of time, a soul has received much light and many inspirations, and when the confessor have confirmed the source of these inspirations and set the soul at peace, if its love is great, Jesus now makes it known that it is time to put into action what it has received. The soul recognizes that God is counting on it, and this knowledge fortifies it. It knows that to be faithful, it will often have to face various difficulties, but it trusts in God, and, thanks to this trust, it reaches that point to which God is calling it. Difficulties do not terrify it, they are its daily bread, as it were. They do not frighten or terrify the soul, just as a warrior who is constantly in battle is not terrified by the roar of the cannon. Far from being frightened, it listens to determine from which side the enemy is launching his attack, in order to defeat him. It does nothing blindly, but examines and ponders everything deeply, and not counting on itself, it prays fervently and asks advice of other warriors who are experienced and wise. When the soul acts in this way, it nearly always wins. These are attacks when a soul has no time to think or seek advice, then it must enter into a life or death struggle. Sometimes it is good to flee for cover in the wound of the heart of Jesus, without answering a single word. By this very act the enemy is already defeated. In time of peace as well, the soul continues making efforts, just as in time of battle. It must exercise itself, and do so with energy. Otherwise it has no chance of attaining victory. I regard the time of peace as a time of preparation for victory. The soul must be ever watchful. Watchfulness and again watchfulness. The soul that reflects receives much light. A distracted soul runs the risk of a fall, and let it not be surprised when it does fall. O Spirit of God, director of the soul, wise is he whom you have trained. But for the Spirit of God to act in the soul, peace and recollection are needed.